can't get no satisfaction. I can't get no good reaction. But I try. What am I doing wrong? Is it on? I try. And I try.
I'll introduce you with your mic. Okay.
It's been a while since a woman talked into my chest. Go ahead.
We have one working mic.
Here, take the mic.
No, it's good.
Take the mic.
It's not often that you get to introduce one of your teachers and friends to speak to a collection of people that you adore. And what an honor it is to say that my teacher and my friend is here, and your teacher and your friend is here to share Torah with us all. And
wait, let me do it first. Then you'll see if you like it.
I'm the woman of faith. So I'd love for you to know better Rabbi Ed Feinstein, because the more I know him, the more I love him, and the more I know in general. And it's just such a beautiful thing to learn with somebody with the Torah that he both lives and teaches is real. And it's coming from a place where he walks it, he talks it, he breathes it, and amen.
Rabbi, it's a pleasure. It's an honor to be with you. Good Shabbos to you and to your family. Good Shabbos. Wonderful. And David, how are you? It's good to see you. And this is my son Rafi and Alana. They came from, Rafi's coming from the world and Alana's coming from Bloomington. So congratulate her. Next week she graduates. And her student loans are due, so give her a hug and a kiss. All right, good Shabbos, everyone. It's good to be together. You can close the red books, put them aside for a few minutes. We'll learn from them later. And we're going to take out the blue books, okay? That's the Chumash. Now, this week's Torah portion is Emor, right? Right? But in order to understand Emor, you got to get the backstory. So we got to go back a week, back to Kedoshim. Okay? So open to page 894. This won't take more than 2 hours, I promise you. Because I know you want to eat lunch. But the only way to understand Emor is to understand Kedoshim. And the only way to understand Kedoshim is to understand everything that's Jewish. So, and I can do that in about 2 hours. So we'll get there, I promise you. Here is the most radical, powerful, life-changing, earth-shaking idea in the whole Torah. It's actually the middle verse of the Torah, in case you miss it. It's right in the middle. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. God spoke to Moses. Daber al kol adat b'nei Yisrael. You go tell all the people of Israel. Ve'amarta alehem. And be sure to say to them, Kedoshim tihiyu, ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohechem. You will be kadosh, because I, God, am kadosh. We won't translate kadosh yet. We'll come back to that. That's what the secret is. We talked a little bit about it last night. But just the structure of the sentence. Here is a quality of God, and you are going to have it. You are going to be like God. Now, if I remember correctly, that's what got us thrown out of the Garden of Eden. The snake said to the woman, eat the fruit, and you're going to be like God. And she said, hot dog. And she ate the fruit. She gave it to husband. He ate the fruit. And then the next line is God says, oy vey. Because if they keep eating that fruit, they're going to be like us. They're going to be God-like. God said, I've got to get them out of the garden. Because they're not ready for that yet. So we got tossed out of the garden where we had to earn this. Well, we got tossed out of the garden and we went through a flood. And we went through Abraham and the sacrifice of Isaac. And we went through Jacob. And we went through all of his turmoil. And we went down into Egypt. And we were broken as slaves. And we came up out of Egypt. And we crossed the Red Sea. And we got to Sinai. And God said, you want my Torah? And we said, you bet. And God said, now you're ready to be like me. But now what does it mean to be like God? It doesn't say, I am eternal, so you're going to live forever. It doesn't say I am all powerful, so you're going to rule the world. It doesn't say I'm all knowing, so you're going to know everything. Heck, it doesn't even say I'm thin, right? Much to my chagrin, you know. The Lord said you will be on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Right. Doesn't say that. There's only one quality of God that you can own. One quality of God that you can make your own. You can't be eternal. You can't be all-knowing. You can't be all-powerful. But you can be kadosh. Now, what is this thing, kadosh? We talked about it a little bit yesterday. It said every human being walks the world surrounded by a circle of care, concern, and love. There's certain of us who believe that we are individuals. We define ourselves in terms of a radical individualism, and we say, my circle ends at the end of my nose. I am for me, by me, and only me. You make me happy, then you can be my friend. Otherwise, you get out of my circle. That sense of radical individualism, I argued last night, is endemic to American culture. Don't tread on me was the national flag. We are individuals. The American likes to negotiate life as a consumer, because as long as I'm the consumer, I can control the transaction with another human being. But there comes a moment when being a consumer is awfully lonely. Lo tov heota levado. It's not right to walk the world as a consumer. Right? Somewhere you got to reach across that aisle in Walmart and say to another human being, you belong to me. I care for you. Your pain is mine. Your happiness is mine. Now, the American ideal is that if anyone intrudes into your circle, it diminishes the self because you become responsible for that person. They become dependent on you. But the Jewish idea is the opposite. Lo tov heot adam levado. You can't be alone in this world. The Jewish world is the opposite. To include the other in my circle of care makes me more human. To include the other in the circle of my love makes me bigger. Yes, it means I cry a hell of a lot more. Because I not only cry my own tears, I cry yours. But I mean, when I cry, you cry with me. And when I hurt, you hurt with me. And when I am in pain, you come to my home, and you hold me, and you protect me, and you share your dreams with me. And slowly I discover that I'm lifted from my pain, and I open up the circle of the self. And here's what this means. The circle of the self opens up, and I become bigger, holier, more human, deeper. My life gains meaning. My life gains meaning. Kadoshim tihiyu, ki kadosh ani Adonai. The word kadosh means to bond with another one. Marriage in Hebrew is kiddushin, bonding. Friday night, Shabbos morning, we gather with friends over wine, we say kiddush. Someone I love dies, and I say, I will not let go. I recite Kaddish. It means to bond. Kiddushim tihiyu means this. God is the circle that includes all. The bigger your circle, the more people that step into your circle of care, concern, and love, the more people you worry about at night, the more laughter you share during the day, the more you touch the world, Kedoshim Tihiyu, the bigger that circle, the more godlike you become. You aspire to become like God and to embrace the whole world. And then comes the mitzvot. And each of these mitzvot acts this out in some small way. Look at one after the other. They come one after the other. Right? The Lord spoke to Moses, says, be holy, be kadosh, because I, God, am kadosh. Be bound to each other, because you are all bound to me. Number one, what's the first primary bonding? Mother and father. There was a famous psychoanalyst by the name of Erik Erikson. Anyone ever hear of that name? He taught at Harvard University. Very famous guy. Here's a hint. That wasn't his name. His name is Eric Hamburger, or something like that. But when he took his psychoanalysis, he decided he was free of his mother and free of his father. He would be a self-made man. And so he renamed himself Erik Erikson. I would love to know what his mom thought of that. You know, I carried you, I birthed you, I changed your poopy diapers. I nursed you. You were sick. I sat with you. I did your 9th grade math homework for you. And now you're Eric Erickson? You know? Foo-fa. The arrogance of the self-made man who thinks that somehow he hasn't a mother and a father in the world who stayed up all night worrying about him, who got him into Harvard. You revere your mother and father because that's the primary relationship. You have to become an independent person, it's true, yes, but you never forget the people who stayed up all night taking care of you when you were a babe. There is no such thing as an independent self. Everyone is born to a mom and a dad. And if you don't send your mom flowers on Mother's Day, there's something seriously wrong with your neshama. What does it say? I am God. That's the primary relationship. You can't love your mama? You're not going to have a hard time loving God. What is the next one? You'll keep my Sabbaths. What's the day on which I let go of the economic relationship and enter into a relationship of benevolence? All week long, I am a capitalistic son of a gun. I would say something else, but there are children in the room. I am a capitalistic beast. You get in my way, I will crush you. Donald Trump. Donald Trump. We honor this man, not only for his fabulous hair. We honor this man because he is the champion at the capitalistic game. But if you know Donald Trump, you know that he is a beast. He is an absolute beast. He is a leopard. He crawls the jungles of capitalism, consuming his enemies, destroying those who would get in his way. No one is his friend. No one is his companion. Everyone is either a competitor or, for the moment, someone is giving him an investor. But once a week, Shabbos comes, and I put away my Donald Trump mask. And I can say to the other, I don't want anything from you. I'm not here to make a buck on you. I can love you. I really am concerned about you. And the question is how much of that Shabbos neshama finds its way back into the rest of the week. It's a wonderful teaching by the Abraham Joshua Heschel. You've all heard of the great philosopher. His grandfather was named Abraham Joshua Heschel. They once came to the senior Heschel, and they said to him about a certain Jew. He's so religious. He's a real Shomer Shabbos. He's a real Sabbath observer. And the great Heschel said, yeah, but is he Shomer Tuesday? You know, like anybody can be a mensch on Shabbos. You know. Show me a guy who can be a mensch on a Tuesday. Show me someone who cares about human beings on Wednesday. Show me someone who can bond and love on Thursday. Now that's somebody who's become somebody. That's the second one. Look at the next one. Do not turn to idols or make molten gods for yourselves. I want to translate that differently. It's because the Hebrew is ambivalent, and I think it's on purpose. The Hebrew is al tifnu el elilim. Don't turn to another god. Ve'elohem masecha lo ta'asu lachem. Don't make a god of yourself. Don't make a god of yourself, which means don't live that self-centered life. Ani Adonai. You are part of a bigger universe. You are part of a bigger universe. Now let me stop for a second. I want to suggest another radical idea which is suggested by this Torah portion. That I promise you will get the Emor, and I promise you will read it, and I promise you you'll have lunch. Or an early dinner, one of these. We think of God, most kids think of God as a grandfatherly God who lives in the sky. Most of us think of God as someone in the sky. Those of us who are theists think of the God as someone in the sky who we can talk to, who's there for us, and who showers us with rewards and blessings. Those of us who are atheists think we don't want anything to do with the guy in the sky. He's a pain, he's difficult, he's arbitrary, he's random. I want to think about a different way to think about God for me. A radical, mystical way to think about God. Imagine you're standing in front of a mirror, full-length mirror, and I say, touch your head. And I say, touch your shoulders. And I say, touch your belly. And I say, touch your tush. And touch your knees. Now I say, touch yourself. You know, self. The self, that's the one inside of you, the person in you, the person that is you, the one who's inside of you, the thinking, feeling, speaking part of you. Touch yourself. You said, I don't know. You are a body. And if, God forbid, something happened to you and we chop your arm off, you'd still be you. And if we chop your leg off, you'd be you. And if we chop part of something else off, you'd still be you. It's all you because there's a sense of self in you that remains intact no matter what of the body we take away. Now consider the following. In the Talmud in Brachot on page 10, it says the following. The soul is to the body as God is to the universe. So let's flip that upside down. God is to the universe what the self is to the body. Imagine for a moment the following idea. Everything in the universe, all that is one big body. And God is the self of the universe. Everything that is one body, and God is the self of the universe. What does that make you and I? It makes us cells in the body of God. It's not that you're here and God's up there and you're speaking to God. You are in God. You are God. You are the eyes and the ears and the feeling part of God. Or the liver or the kidney or the pancreas of God. I don't know what you are. It depends on what job you got in the world. You are in God. You are of God. You can't separate yourself from God. And you also can't separate yourself from the cell next to you. Try this exercise one day. Look how far apart they are. Your finger's over here and your foot's over there. Imagine they're part of the same thing, and if you disagree, if you think they're not, it's a simple way. Take something heavy and drop it on your foot. See how your finger feels about that. We are all part of the one. All part of the all. And God is the self of the universe. And that's the problem, you see. The problem is that human beings go off on their own. Human beings says, don't tell me that I'm responsible for my brother. Don't tell me I'm responsible for my sister. Don't tell me I'm responsible for folks across town. Don't tell me I'm responsible for people who are poorer than me, richer than me. Don't tell me I'm responsible for someone who lives across the world. I live my own life. Leave me alone. I live in Highland Park. God, I don't have to worry about anybody. Chicago? Another municipality. America? That's the equivalent of a cell in your body saying, I'm not interested in being part of the whole. You know what you call that in biology? Cancer. Cancer is when a cell says, screw the rest of you guys, I'm doing my thing. I'm going to have babies, many as I want. The rest of the body says, that's a threat, because you will soon block up the whole thing. That's called evil. Evil is a disease in the body of God. It's when one of us says that we're not responsible for all the rest of us. Kedoshim tihiyu. You will be a healthy body. In the same way that each of the cells of your body has to work with all the other cells, you have to know that you're part of the all. And that the brother or sister who sits next to you is not a stranger. In fact, it is an illusion that you are separate from the brother or sister who sits next to you. It is an illusion, a delusion, that your fate isn't tied up with their fate, that your pain isn't their pain, that your joy isn't their joy. That's what this is trying to teach. And God is the self of the whole. So you better figure out how it is you're going to feed and take care of the one sitting next to you. We'll get a few verses in, and it's going to tell you this explicitly. It's going to tell you this explicitly. Every one of these verses, by the way, and if I did have all day, we can go through every single one of them and see how every one of them interprets this idea of what it means to live with the consciousness that there is no separation between me and you, between us, that it's all us. It's all about us. And it resolves in a really beautiful one at the end. It says, 13, you will not defraud your neighbor. Well, why wouldn't I? Because he and I are one. You can't commit robbery because you're taken from yourself. The wages of the labor not remain with you until morning. You'll not insult the deaf or place a stumbling block before the blind. Fear your God. You will not render an unfair decision. You will not deal basely with your fellows. You will not profit by the lot of your neighbor. You will not hate your kinsman in your heart. Reprove him, but don't incur guilt. You will not take vengeance or bear a grudge against your neighbor. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. You have to love your brother, not as you love yourself. That's one way to translate it. I want to translate it radically. You will love your brother because he is you. Because at some level of metaphysical reality and ethical reality, you are the same. You are one. You are connected. He falls, you fall. He dies, you die. I used to tell the kids a story at summer camp when I was a camp director about a guy who has a boat, takes his boat out on a lake with his 3 friends, and in the middle of their fishing trip takes out a drill and starts drilling a hole in the bottom of the boat. And his friends say, "Brother, what are you doing?" And he said, "Don't worry, it's only under my seat. I'm not going to disturb your fishing. You guys go ahead fishing, but I'm going to drill a hole." And his friend said, "Yeah, brother, but that's like our boat. We're all in this boat together." He said, "Yeah, but it's my drill and it's my boat, and it's a nice day for drilling holes, so back off." Right? This is the answer to American individualism. You want to do your thing? You want to drill a hole in the bottom of your boat? You don't care about where. It's all right, fine. You just see what happens. You just see what happens. You just see what happens. We are one in God. That is, God is that which connects all of us. It is the inevitable fabric of connection that connects every human being. And the question isn't, do you believe in God? The question is, are you going to behave in a manner that recognizes that the person who sits next to you belongs to you? They are your problem. They are your celebration. In my synagogue, a big, rich synagogue. Well, we were. We have these 2 stained glass windows that face each other. And you can have one, by the way. We are a little down on our luck. One of them says, you will love the other. And the other one says, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. They are the same message. God is one. We are one. And therefore, one must care for the other. And one's caring for the other is the only evidence that God is one. Now comes this week's Torah portion. So now we jump ahead. I told you I'd get to it before lunch. Now we get to Emor. And Emor begins. Now, what you got to know about this section of the Torah is this section was written not for regular Jews. This is written for priests. This is technical priestly junk. This is a tech manual for priests. Anyone here have a profession, and in your profession there's a book that's given to the professionals to tell you how to do stuff? Like Mark has a professional job. Mark has a book that tells him which drugs to diagnose for which crazy people, right? DSM-5, 4, what's it called? And it has little pictures of pills. Give the red ones to the Meshuggahs and the right ones to the... You got one, right? You got one like that, right? Right? Anyone? Lawyers got form books, tell you how to do certain pleadings, and stockbrokers have books, tell you how to, right? Rabbis even have books, right? Oh, yes, we do. Yeah. Say this at the bris, you know. So it's exactly what we got. So this is the tech manual for priests. So you got to go underneath it a little bit to get the meaning of it. Here's the meaning of it. Look at the beginning. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the priests." Here's the tech manual for the priests. "And say to them, none shall defile himself or any dead person among his kin." Now that's pretty radical. Except his closest relatives, mom, dad, kids, and brother or sister. I'm sorry, 9:12. I apologize, 9:12. Why not? Now think about this for a minute. First of all, so here's the situation. You have a priest of Israel, right? And somebody in the community dies. Now, touching death disqualifies you as a priest. The first thing that's interesting is, you would imagine that the first person who would have to go and take care of the mourners and take care of the dead would be the priest. I mean, after all, that's what people call rabbis, right? And by the way, just so you'll know what these guys do for a living and why you pay them, right? It's because nobody dies at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. I don't know why. But 3:30 in the morning on a Saturday night, especially if it's your wedding anniversary, it's, "Rabbi, could you please come to the hospital?" Sure. You come and you be there. I mean, that's what we do. We call a clergy person to be at bedside when someone dies. This is the opposite. The priest can't do that. Why not? Except for the closest of relatives. And when he does officiate at the closest of relatives, he can't come back to being a priest for some period of time. Now, the Torah tells you what they're supposed to do. It's a tech manual. It doesn't tell you why. We have to use our imaginations why. Why can't the priest be the guy who's taking care of people who die? Well, let me ask you something. What happens when you confront death? What happens when someone dies and you're the one standing there giving comfort and strength? What happens when someone dies tragically and you're the one giving comfort and strength? What emotions are in the room? What does that mean, you die with them? That's beautiful, but what does that mean? Something inside of you died with them, right? Of course it did. Of course it did. And what were you feeling? What do we feel when someone's dying? You feel hopeless. You feel helpless. And you feel sad. You feel bereft. You feel broken. You feel torn. And then sometimes, especially if it's a person that you're close to, and it's not the right time, or it's been a particularly tough time, you get angry. Anyone ever heard the words of anger at the deathbed? You get angry. Who do you get angry at, by the way? Everybody. You're angry at the nurses. You're angry at the doctors. You're angry at the insurance company. You're angry at the hospital. You're angry with the rabbi. You're angry with God. You're angry with your brother-in-law. Oh, he deserves it, you know. There's just this anger. Why is there an anger? Because it's just not right. And you get that sense it's not right. This isn't fair. A soul so beautiful, a soul so wholesome, a soul so wonderfully good should be kept in a vessel so fragile and vulnerable and breakable. It's not right. And you get filled with pain and hopelessness and helplessness and rage and despair, and that person can't feel connected. Because at that person, it's all about you. At that moment, it's all about you. It's all about you. That's why, what do we do at Shiva? You all been to a Shiva once in a while? Family has a Shiva, has a death. We come to their house bearing coffee cake. Because the Jews will always meet catastrophe with carbohydrates. And if the person this morning gets up and says, come in, I want to welcome to my home, welcome, you say, no, sit down. You don't welcome me. I've come to be with you. You are, at this moment, the center of the universe. You have a right to be the center of the universe. I've come to bring you nourishment. I've come to bring you comfort. I've come to bring you life again. That's where the mourner is. That's where the mourner sits. And slowly, they rise up out of that. The priest cannot be the person who deals with death, because the priest has to be the one who is always reminding us that we are connected to each other. And if a priest is filled with a rage at God, a priest can't be a priest. If the priest is filled with that sense of, I'm alone in the world and no one knows my pain, a priest can't be a priest. By the way, Shlomo Carlebach, great teacher, once offered a wonderful drush on this. He says, that's why it's so hard to pray after the Holocaust. Because the whole Jewish people is in this condition. We're all full of rage. We're all full of pain. We're all full of self-centeredness. We're all full of a sense of trauma, and therefore we can't reach out and touch the world. It's a really interesting interpretation of the Jewish people. It's why Jewish people have a real hard time getting their act together, dealing with other people, because we're so filled with that pain, we tend to become deeply and ferociously self-centered. You can't feel the collective. You can't feel the all. You can't feel God, because you're in that moment. You have to heal from that. Someone had a question. Yeah. Because the Torah rabbis don't occur in the Bible. Rabbis don't come so much later. And rabbis are going to have a different role in the community. The priest is the carrier of this message. The priest is the embodiment of the collective. The priest is the embodiment of the collective. The priest never says me. He always says us. The priest isn't about his own. He doesn't have a name. He's just a Kohen. The priest is the embodiment of the collective. But if the priest himself is suffering because the person has died, has touched him, then the priest can't be the priest. That's the point. Because he loses his role as the embodiment of the collective. It becomes all about me and my pain. You see? So the priest is the us. You can't pray if you're saying me. You can't walk the world as a Jew if it's only about me. Kadoshim tihiyu means it's got to learn. We have to heal from that pain and then reach out to the other. And it's, by the way, that's the moment you know someone's healed. If someone's in a lot of pain and they're able to reach out to another person, that's when you know they're beginning to heal. I'll tell you a really short story. On lunch is another 2 hours. But 10 years ago, my dad had a vicious stroke. My dad's a big, strong guy. He's a bread baker. Big, strong guy, a vicious stroke. Deeply, profoundly paralyzed on one side of his body. And so after he got past the life-threatening part, they put him in rehab. And he would do rehab, serious physical therapy for 6-7 hours a day. And I would go up at the end of my day, my work day, I'd go up and see Pop. And I'd go, like at 10, 11 o'clock, I'd finish my day, I'd get some ice cream, I'd go up, I'd see him in the rehab, we'd sit, we'd watch the news together, And we talked. I got there one evening about 11 o'clock, and I brought my ice cream, and we're eating the ice cream, and he says, listen, Ed, I'm really sorry, but I gotta tell you something. I got an appointment. I said, Pops, 11 o'clock at night, who the hell do you have an appointment with? He said, I have an appointment. Okay. So he wheels himself out into the hallway and up the hallway, and he's gone. And the nurse comes in and says, let me tell you what's happened to your dad. He said there was a kid who was brought in 2 nights ago. He'd had a humongous, terrible motorcycle accident on the freeway. And the kid, young kid, quadriplegic. And the kid was so broken in spirit. The kid refused to take his meds. And he was going to die. And they sent a hospital psychiatrist, and they sent a hospital therapist, and they sent a hospital social worker, and they sent everybody, and nobody could get that kid to take his meds. So after all them left, my dad wheeled himself into the kid's room. My dad's a bread baker. My dad finished high school. My dad's not a professional medical professional. He's good with Danish, that's for sure. But that's it. I mean, my dad wheeled himself in my dad paralyzed on one side of his body and also profoundly depressed from what was taken from him, wheeled himself into that kid's room and sat there all night long talking to that kid. And in the morning, the kid said, give me the meds. So the next night, the nurses said, Mr. Feinstein, would you mind going in and talking to the kid and seeing if you could get him to take his meds again? So Pop went back in. And every night at 11:30, Pop went in and gave the kid his meds. Now here's what's amazing. He saved the kid's life. It also saved my dad's life. Because suddenly it wasn't about his own suffering, his own pain. It wasn't about his own loss. It wasn't about what was taken from him. He suddenly realized that he was in a position to reach out to another human being. When you can reach out of that tight, closed circle of my pain and realize that you're there to help somebody else, and it was that gave my father the courage and the ability to heal from his, still profoundly paralyzed, but he's not depressed anymore. He's got a sense of where he is in the world. The priest who is living with the rage at life can't be a priest. Anyone who lives with the rage has to heal from that rage so they can turn to the one who's beside them and say, you belong to me. You belong to me. You belong to me. Right? And that, by the way, explains the section that Rabbi Lizzie was teaching us at the end. The very last story here is this weird story. Right? What page was that on? The weird story. The blasphemer. 937. So the Torah, this section ends with this really strange story about this kid whose father's Egyptian and mother's Jewish, and he starts into a fight with another guy, right? And he curses God. He curses God. Now, what's interesting about that? What's interesting? First of all, there's only 2 narratives in the whole book of Leviticus. It's the narrative of the 2 sons of Aaron who were killed because of Eish Zarah, and this one. What should have happened? He curses God. What should have happened? Come on, this is Raiders of the Lost Ark. What should have happened? Yes, that's exactly right. Lightning should have come from the Holy Ark and whizzed. Done. They should have swept him up with a broom. You know? You think like me, bro. That doesn't happen. Not only doesn't that happen, it's not even clear to Moses what to do with the guy. I mean, it's clear to all of us. Torah says all over the place, don't revile the name of God. We know what to do. What does Moses do? What does Moses do? It's really interesting what Moses, number one, God doesn't strike him dead. And number 2, Moses doesn't strike him dead. Remember the Pinchas story? In Pinchas, where these 2 folks are making a party, and it happens to be a Jew and a Midianite, and Pinchas has a shish kebab party. You remember that one? They don't do that to him either. What do? They take the kid, And where do they take him? Where? Well, not yet. That's what happens to Pinchas. What happens here? They take this kid and they put him in custody. They put him in a war. They put him in custody, right? What happens? What happens when a person's in custody? The thing cools off. They don't kill him right away. Things cool off. And then God says, okay, anybody who heard him say it, you have to stone him to death. Gee, you know, that was a couple of days ago. I'm not exactly sure what I heard. Did you hear what he said?
I heard, but I didn't.
I wasn't exactly. Did you hear what I heard? We were there, and we didn't quite hear what... maybe he was talking about something. Did you hear what he had? Rabbi? Moses? Nobody heard. I guess we'll have to figure out something else to do with the kid. Because we didn't hear enough to stone him to death. Because an angry kid is still part of the circle of this family. And we're going to have to find some way to bring him in instead of pushing him out. Kedoshim tihiyu. You belong to each other. Now you have to live that way. Shabbat. Whoa, look at all these squares. Oh, I guess the microphone is